Welcome to Common Issues and Solutions content of your Loan Officer Training, Common Issues and Solutions. In this module, we will cover the most frequent problems that arise during the mortgage process, how to troubleshoot them effectively, and most importantly, how to prevent them from happening in the first place. As a loan officer, your ability to anticipate and resolve issues quickly is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Let's begin with last-minute problems. Last-minute problems are issues that surface in the final days or hours before a scheduled closing. These are among the most stressful situations in the mortgage industry because they can delay or even derail a transaction that has been in process for weeks or months. Understanding the most common types of last-minute problems will help you stay calm and act decisively when they occur. The first and most common last-minute problem is an appraisal issue. This can take several forms. The appraisal may come in below the purchase price, meaning the property is worth less than what the buyer agreed to pay. The appraisal may identify required repairs that must be completed before the loan can close, or the appraiser may have used incorrect comparable sales, resulting in an inaccurate value. When an appraisal comes in low, you have several options. You can request a reconsideration of value by submitting additional comparable sales to the appraiser. You can negotiate with the seller to reduce the purchase price. The buyer can make up the difference in cash, or in some cases, the transaction may need to be restructured. Each situation is different, and your job is to present all available options to the borrower and the real estate agents quickly and clearly. The second common last-minute problem is a title issue. Title problems can include undisclosed liens on the property, boundary disputes, errors in public records, or issues with a prior foreclosure or estate sale. These problems are discovered during the title search and can prevent the transaction from closing until they are resolved. When a title issue arises, the title company and the real estate attorney, if applicable, will work to resolve it. Your role is to communicate clearly with all parties about the timeline and to keep the borrower informed. In some cases, title issues can be resolved quickly. In others, they may require weeks of legal work. It is important to set realistic expectations and to document all communications. The third major last-minute problem is a funding delay. Funding delays can occur when the lender's funding department identifies a problem with the loan file after the borrower has already signed the documents. Common causes include missing or incorrect documents, a change in the borrower's employment or income, a new liability that was not disclosed, or a last-minute credit inquiry that raises concerns. When a funding delay occurs, time is critical. You must immediately identify the cause of the delay, communicate with the funding department to understand exactly what is needed, and work quickly to provide the required documentation. You should also notify the escrow officer, the real estate agents, and the borrower as soon as possible so that everyone can adjust their plans accordingly. The fourth last-minute problem is borrower cold feet. This happens when a borrower becomes anxious or uncertain about the transaction and begins to hesitate or ask to delay the closing. This can be triggered by financial stress, relationship issues, concerns about the property, or simply the magnitude of the commitment they are about to make. When a borrower expresses hesitation, your first step is to listen. Do not dismiss their concerns or pressure them to proceed. Instead, acknowledge their feelings, ask open-ended questions to understand the root of their concern, and provide clear, factual information to address any misunderstandings. In many cases, borrowers simply need reassurance and a clear explanation of what they are signing. If the concern is financial, review the numbers with them again and make sure they fully understand their monthly payment, their closing costs, and their long-term financial commitment. The fifth last-minute problem is a wire fraud attempt. As we discussed in Module 3, wire fraud is a serious and growing threat. Fraudsters may attempt to intercept communications and redirect wire transfers to fraudulent accounts. If you or your borrower receive any last-minute changes to wiring instructions, treat this as a red flag. Always verify wiring instructions by calling the title company directly using a phone number you have independently confirmed. Never rely on contact information provided in an email that contains changed wiring instructions. Now let's move into troubleshooting. Effective troubleshooting requires a systematic approach. When a problem arises, the first step is to gather all the facts. Do not act on incomplete information. Identify exactly what the problem is, when it was discovered, who is affected, and what the potential impact on the closing timeline is. The second step is to identify all possible solutions. For most problems in the mortgage process, there is more than one path forward. Think through each option carefully, considering the time required, the cost, and the likelihood of success. Consult with your processor, your underwriter, your title officer, and your manager as needed. Do not try to solve complex problems alone. The third step is to communicate proactively. One of the biggest mistakes loan officers make when problems arise is waiting too long to communicate. The moment you identify a problem, notify all relevant parties. This includes the borrower, the real estate agents, the escrow officer, and your manager. Be honest about the situation, explain what you know and what you are doing to resolve it, and give a realistic timeline for resolution. The fourth step is to document everything. Every conversation, every email, every decision should be documented in your loan file. This protects you, your borrower, and your company. If a problem escalates or leads to a complaint, your documentation will be your best defense. The fifth step is to follow up relentlessly. Once you have identified a solution and communicated it to all parties, follow up consistently until the problem is fully resolved. Do not assume that others are handling their part. Confirm that every action item has been completed and that the file is back on track. Now let's talk about prevention strategies. Prevention is always better than cure. The most successful loan officers are those who anticipate problems before they arise and take proactive steps to prevent them. Here are the most important prevention strategies you should implement on every loan. The first prevention strategy is thorough upfront due diligence. Before you submit a loan for processing, review the file carefully. Verify the borrower's income, assets, employment, and credit. Order the appraisal early. Request a preliminary title report as soon as possible. The earlier you identify potential issues, the more time you have to resolve them before they become last-minute emergencies. The second prevention strategy is clear and consistent communication. Set expectations with your borrower from the very beginning. Explain the entire mortgage process, including what documents will be needed, what the timeline looks like, and what could potentially cause delays. Check in with your borrower regularly throughout the process, not just when there is a problem. Borrowers who feel informed and supported are far less likely to experience anxiety or hesitation at closing. The third prevention strategy is building strong relationships with your team. Your processor, your underwriter, your title officer, and your escrow officer are your partners. The stronger your relationships with these professionals, the more smoothly your transactions will run. Communicate clearly, respond promptly, and treat every member of your team with respect. When problems arise, a strong team will work together to solve them quickly. The fourth prevention strategy is staying current on guidelines and requirements. Mortgage guidelines change frequently. Lender overlays, agency updates, and regulatory changes can all affect your loans. Make it a habit to stay informed about changes that could impact your borrowers. Attend training sessions, read industry publications, and ask questions when you are unsure about a guideline. The fifth prevention strategy is managing borrower behavior throughout the process. One of the most common causes of last-minute problems is a change in the borrower's financial situation between application and closing. Borrowers sometimes make large purchases, change jobs, open new credit accounts, or make large deposits without realizing the impact these actions can have on their loan. At the time of application, clearly explain to your borrower what they should and should not do during the loan process. Tell them not to make any large purchases, not to open or close any credit accounts, not to change jobs without notifying you, and not to make any large deposits without documentation. Follow up on these instructions periodically throughout the process. The sixth prevention strategy is having a closing checklist. Before every closing, review a comprehensive checklist to ensure that all conditions have been satisfied, all documents are in order, all parties have been notified, and all logistics have been confirmed. A closing checklist is a simple but powerful tool that can prevent many last-minute problems. To summarize, as a loan officer, your ability to handle common issues effectively depends on your preparation, your communication skills, and your commitment to proactive problem-solving. Last-minute problems are inevitable in this industry, but with the right knowledge and the right habits, you can minimize their frequency and resolve them quickly when they do occur. Thank you for completing Module 4. In the next module, we will cover compliance and regulatory requirements every loan officer must know.